First story: my cheating wife lost control when I refused to sign the birth certificate of her son's affair. I have been married for 7 years to my wife, who is 33 years old, and we have no children. 2 years ago, she started a new job and excelled. Initially, she mentioned a coworker that she disliked, calling him an idiot. However, her attitude towards him softened over time, and she stopped talking about him as much. I saw no reason to worry, despite our imperfect marriage. I have always trusted her, and we generally got along. Fast forward to about a month ago. I started noticing changes. She began texting more frequently, keeping her phone close at all times. Her evenings and weekends suddenly became busier. She became distant and avoided any affection. On top of that, she started lying about strange things. The final lie occurred when she packed her bags for a business trip, wearing a much more revealing bathing suit than she had ever worn before. When I asked her, she claimed that she had ordered it online fake and decided it wasn't suitable for a work trip to Florida but took it anyway. While she was away, I decided to investigate. Throughout our relationship, there was never HME in my wife's belongings, but I was fed up with the constant disappointment. In her work bag, I discovered a cartoonish drawing of her on hotel stationery. Next to it was a post-it note with directions to her male co-worker's house. Wine written in her handwriting. Reviewing our bank statements revealed numerous instances where she claimed to be at work but was actually dining at various restaurants in the city. This led me to investigate thoroughly. As a professional private investigator, I have no qualms about invading privacy when faced with substantial suspicion. I legally placed a GPS tracker on her car, which is in my name and our state. Upon her return from the trip, she mentioned going to a coffee shop and running errands on a Sunday, but her car never even went near a Chipotle. She came home with a glass of Chipotle, confirming that she had eaten there. Then, the following Tuesday, she said she would be attending a company dinner and working late. The GPS data showed she left work at 3:20 p.m. and stayed at the restaurant until 9 p.m. The big problem happened the following Saturday. We were supposed to see my niece play tennis at 8 a.m. She said she wanted to drive herself so she could leave the tennis place and go to work at a coffee shop after the game. She said she would go to the coffee shop X and talked a little about why she wanted to go there. I told her to have a nice day and went to my car. Using the GPS, I saw that she drove straight to a Camp Furton motel. I got to Camp Furton and waited in a nearby parking lot until I could make sure she was inside, not in her car. I called her from the lobby and asked her how the coffee shop X was. She said she was fine and asked why I wanted to know. I just told her I said to come down so we could talk. When she came down, she said, "No, it's not what you think. He has to do this because he's been caught with other girls before." I asked her what she meant, and she said he always works in hotel rooms. She said they didn't do anything physical. It was then when I told her to get out of my car. I left, and she called me 50 times. I finally answered and told her if she told one lie, I would hang up. She admitted they kissed once about 5 months ago but said it was a mistake and didn't mean anything. She kept saying they were just working. I asked her how many times she had met him at hotels. She said about 10 in the last 9 months. Then I asked her what she did that Tuesday, and she got defensive. She said she was at work all day until a work dinner. I told her I thought she was lying and hung up. She came to our house while I was loading my stuff and my dog in my car. She stayed in the driveway, refusing to move until we talked. She was crying and saying sorry, so upset that day. I left, and it's been a month since then. Now we have met a few times for her to explain things, but when I ask my questions, she gets upset and defensive, saying that answering isn't good for us. She has lied about little things, and when I confront her, she says I'm trapping her. She has claimed it wasn't romantic. She claimed they were just good friends, and he was helping her with her work. Their conversations became inappropriate, discussing our issues. She confessed that she would text him and delete them, saying they weren't romantic but could be seen as flirting. She said he was helping her with her depression and work. I want to trust her, maybe because I love her or I'm scared of the truth. I'm stuck trying to find the truth, but even if I find it, I don't see how I can get over what I already know. I'm losing my mind. Update: we are a month after the day I talked to her. Last night, here's the news. I asked her about her talks with the man in the past 4 weeks. She mentioned that he had no idea about my confrontation at the hotel on D-Day. She hasn't discussed it with him, considering it a marital matter not related to him. I asked her about cutting off non-work related conversations with him. She claimed she is cutting back on that. That sentence infuriated me. She thinks she should reduce gradually instead of cutting off all contact because he is not aware that I caught her. Then, she lied about a trivial detail. I confronted her, totally sure she was lying, and she vehemently denied it, not budging, adding to the pile of unresolved issues. After she claimed to be gradually reducing social conversations with the other man, I hid a voice recorder in my house and left. Last night, I reviewed the tape and found that my wife and this man chatted for over an hour on at least 2 calls. The recording stopped in the afternoon, so I assumed they talked more in the evening. I didn't catch many specific details but heard some incriminating comments. They discussed the state of our marriage, something she claimed he didn't know about. They chatted about using a secret phone app to avoid detection. She insulted me for being late for breakfast. They talked and laughed about numerous topics. I hadn't heard my wife so happy since we were dating. She admitted some things, denied the rest. I don't care anymore. I am meeting with a divorce attorney this morning. For the past 2 weeks, I have maintained communication with my spouse. She recently contacted me via text, seeking a conversation. I replied, setting my condition for the discussion: she would have to confess everything before I participated. She claimed to be aware of a wiretap on her phone that did not exist, but I let her believe it and claimed I already knew everything. I insisted on hearing the truth directly from her. She finally relented, agreeing to sit down to reveal everything. When she visited me, she confessed that her involvement with another man was indeed intimate, spanning the past 6 months. She admitted to booking a hotel room the day before our anniversary for their meeting. She also confirmed continued communication with him after the discovery, claiming it helped her handle my questions. She assured me the affair was over for good and expressed a desire to repair our marriage. This confession unfolded 6 painful weeks later, after I caught her at the hotel. I suspect her confession only came about because of my persistence, although she maintained she always intended to come clean in order to minimize the pain for both of us. The damage accumulated over those 6 weeks seems insurmountable. Update: we ended up divorcing. I took my time before making that decision, and in retrospect, I wish I hadn't waited so long. My ex-wife wanted to stay together, although her reasons were not clear to me. However, her continuous lies and psychological manipulation made reconciliation impossible. Going through divorce has been the most challenging experience of my life. During my marriage, I was totally committed. I was not perfect, but I loved my wife wholeheartedly and envisioned a life together. I was willing to do anything to make her happy, and I believe I made significant efforts on multiple occasions. Now that I have distanced myself from that relationship, I can see it for what it really was: a narcissistic person draining the energy and goodness out of someone who cared. The marriage felt completely one-sided, with one person giving everything and the other taking even more than could be given. Towards the end, I began to believe I was a worthless partner. She belittled my profession, my personality, and my looks. However, since the divorce, my business has thrived, and I have been able to date women I once thought were out of my league. I used to think I was unattractive, partly due to the influence of my ex-wife. But now I have had beautiful and much younger women approach me in bars. I have had some wonderful relationships with amazing women. These relationships ended amicably due to compatibility issues, but they helped me see what a terrible partner my ex-wife really was. I no longer have contact with my ex and rarely think about her.
The divorce became contentious because she thought I was getting too much money. Although I agreed to less than 50% to ensure a smoother process without disrupting business and retirement, it is astonishing that someone could cheat on a partner and then complain about the amount of money they are taking, even if it is less than half. This reinforced my belief that I made the right decision and needed to distance myself from this toxic situation as quickly as possible. I lost a few friends during the divorce, but it doesn't bother me. Most of them took my side, and I don't care about the ones that didn't. They made it easy for me to let them go. The hardest thing was losing my in-laws, as I really cared about some of them. However, I understand their stance. I sent enough correspondence to my ex-wife's affair partner's wife to make it clear what had happened, and although she never responded, I respect her decision. For anyone going through this nightmare, here are some tips: separate it, get professional help, surround yourself with friends and family, make healthy choices, stay active, limit substance use, and prioritize self-care. Listen to advice, but ultimately make your own decisions because it's your life. There were incredibly dark days after discovering the infidelity, but after the initial pain, this period has been the best time of my life. I find genuine happiness every day. If you are facing a similar situation and need advice from someone who has been through it, don't hesitate to contact me. I am here to help. Very well, that was an interesting story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Get ready for the second story. About a month ago, I found out that both of my children were the result of affairs my soon-to-be ex-wife was having. I had been harboring suspicions for a while that neither of them were biologically mine. 6 years ago, when my son was born, I experienced immense happiness. I had married my best friend, we had a child together, and everything seemed perfect. However, as he grew up, I began to have doubts about his paternity. He didn't look like me, and the older he got, the more apparent it became that he looked vastly different than I would expect my son to look. I didn't want to let mere appearances drive my suspicions, as I am not a mean or paranoid person. It was my wife's behavior that set off alarm bells. Every time she went out, her whereabouts did not match her claims. She had unexplained lapses in her schedule, refused to let me interact with anyone from her workplace, and a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her partner at the time. The lies she spun began to catch up with her, especially after the birth of our son. However, despite her deceitful nature, I still loved her, as silly as it sounds. Every time one of her lies was exposed, she assured me of her love for me. She had managed to convince me that, despite her dishonesty and manipulation, she was not an unfaithful woman. Last year, she became pregnant again, and I clung to a glimmer of hope that the child could be mine. However, when our daughter was born, it was apparent that she was multi-ethnic. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the subsequent paternity test I requested confirmed my suspicions. Neither of them shared my biological connection. The day I received those test results was the day I started divorce proceedings against my wife. Unfaithful, I walked away from the family I had built. I understood that my leaving would destroy my son's life as he watched me go. Despite my apprehensions, I had been the best father I could be, pouring all my love and effort into being the father he deserved. However, now when I look at him, I am overcome with disgust. I feel disgust for my unfaithful wife, disgust for my own lack of trust in my instincts, and disgust because the last 6 years of my life have been worthless. Several people have called me a monster for leaving my son this way. Ever since I moved out, my ex has repeatedly tried to manipulate me into reconciling, using him as a bargaining chip. She makes him call me at odd hours of the night, crying and begging for his dad to come back. The day I packed my belongings to move, she brought him into the bedroom to demonstrate the damage she was causing both online and offline. Every time he is mentioned, I am criticized and condemned, even though I am not biologically related to the child. I am his father, sadly. I have now realized that for most people, my own feelings are of no importance. My parents are my only supporters during this ordeal, while my own siblings brand me as a reprehensible person for leaving a child like that. My sense of betrayal and hurt is ignored because there is a child involved. I understand that it is not his fault. I know that the man he called father for his entire life just left. But why am I expected to behave like a man? Why should I pretend that everything is okay and repress my contempt for this whole situation? Why should I put my own life and emotions aside? I was never really the child's father, even though I loved him as such, and I still do. However, I would come to resent him and despise him if I had been forced to continue playing that role. I would hate myself for not standing up for myself and claiming my own life. He is not my son, and although it is not his fault, he is no longer my responsibility. I guess sharing my personal issues did accomplish something after all. I have noticed some common questions, so I will address them here. 1. His son knows the truth behind my departure. I had a conversation with him explaining that I am not his biological father, that his mother cheated on me, and was unfaithful. I left him. Of course, I harbor no ill feelings toward him. He has no responsibility in this situation, and I will continue to think well of him. 2. Some have suggested that I never really cared for him or that I was always looking for a way out. It is difficult to convey emotions in a text post like this, especially when they are overshadowed by strong animosity towards your cheating spouse. You are free to form your own opinions. 3. I have legal representation and will not be obligated to pay child support or alimony. Finally, for those who suggest that I should remain in his son's life and continue as his father, that is not realistically feasible. I feel no animosity toward him, but I have been deceived, lied to, and exploited by a selfish and lying individual who has now entangled his children in his web of lies. He is an innocent victim of his actions and is not to blame. However, it does not change the harsh reality we are facing. I do not hate him. I feel a deep sadness when I think of his situation, but when I look at him, all I see is 6 years of deception, years of being taken advantage of, and 6 long years of pent-up doubts and frustrations with a woman who used me. I cannot simply let go of my resentment to try and be a part of his life because the life I lived with him was nothing more than a facade created by his mother. This is the harsh reality I must deal with, and I cannot, in good conscience, subject myself or him to any more of this. I have noticed numerous armchair lawyers in the comments suggesting that this post is false due to the reasons I mentioned above. I will not reveal my current residency status, but I am currently in the process of legally challenging paternity, known as disestablishing. This will not silence the 90% of you who think Google makes you legal experts, but at least I have made an effort. Edit. This will be my final edit before I move on from this little distraction I created for myself. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude to everyone for your kind words, whether in the comments, DMs, or chat. You have brightened my day, which hasn't happened in a while. I wish I could respond to each and every one of you, but I can't thank you enough. Secondly, I have noticed that many people are vehemently critical of the words I used to describe my soon-to-be ex. I want to clarify that I am currently in one of the darkest periods of my life. All I feel is intense anger towards the woman who has devastated my life. Is it inappropriate, the language I used? Is it degrading and offensive, the word I chose to describe her? Yes, I admit it, but I will not apologize for it. What I have written here today reflects the harsh reality that I am facing right now. It is an unfiltered expression of emotions from an imperfect man. I do not mean to make people hate women or convey a misogynistic message about women being terrible. That is not my goal here, and it is not the message of this post. I understand why people have problems with the word I used, and I accept that as a valid criticism of my actions today. I came here today to find a way out of the situation I am in, to vent, cry, and deal with the complex and intense emotions that have consumed me for the past month, a place where I can speak freely, and you know what? I accomplished today. It was surprisingly well, thanks to all of you. So good, here goes a third story. We were together previously when we were both 22, right after college. Initially, I was more of a friend to her until I asked her out when we both ended up working in the same city. We dated for 9 months, and during that time, I believed she was the one for me. However, she suddenly became distant for no apparent reason. She never wanted anything serious. At that time, with thoughts of pursuing her master's degree in the United States, I wanted a serious relationship, but she saw it as a need and felt like I should be grateful for the opportunity. She was quite popular in college and very attractive, which made me feel insecure because, at the time, I was working on building my own confidence and believed I was becoming a desirable partner. We kept in touch because of mutual friends. From what I observed, between the ages of 23 to 27, she dated several men. When she was 27 to 28, I heard her parents tried to arrange a marriage for her, but none of those prospects worked out. She eventually contacted me, and one thing led to another, and we started dating. At first, she asked me if I was looking for a serious relationship, and I told her I had never dated without serious intentions. However, I also mentioned that I was in no rush to get married and suggested that if she felt pressured by her parents or any other reason to get married quickly, she should explore other options. We dated for 6 months, which honestly were some of the best months of my life. Our life in bed was fantastic, and she was incredibly accommodating and sweet. She brought up the topic of marriage, but I expressed that I wasn't ready. Many of our friends had gone through divorces, which made me cautious. I wanted to be sure before taking such a big step. She accused me of lying about my intentions, but I showed her messages where I agreed to a serious relationship, just not a hasty one. She argued that, overall, we had been dating for over a year, and she was eager to settle down. After this conversation, things became distant between us. Despite sending her sweet goodnight messages, sometimes she wouldn't even respond and showed little interest in meeting up. A month went by, and then she told me I should marry her or move on, stating that she could easily find another guy and that I was lucky to have her. This situation has been painful for me, reminding me of past experiences. I consider myself a modest person, but I also think I'd become a good, attractive catch. Despite my fondness for her, I made it clear that I wouldn't be pressured into marriage. So we decided to end our relationship. After another month, she started texting me again, and we resumed our relationship. It's been 3 months now, and she's back to being her sweet self. She admitted she was wrong in claiming she could easily find someone else and said I'm the one for her. She expressed the desire to get married as soon as I'm ready, and she stressed that her parents are pressuring her to get married, but she's willing to give me time. However, I feel overwhelmed by the idea of marriage right now and worried about her ability to switch between being sweet and distant so abruptly. She's being sweet just to persuade me to marry her. Even though I like her, I have a nagging feeling that this may not work out well in the long run, and it seems like marriage is becoming more forced than natural. Update: the day after I posted my initial message, the thoughtful comments from people made me realize I needed to end the relationship, a realization I probably should have come to earlier. Last Saturday was pretty chaotic, and I'm really thankful for the advice I received. I decided to break up with her, and now I feel like it was the obvious choice. I called her in the morning and explained that I couldn't handle the abrupt changes between being cold and distant. I also told her that she should find someone who aligns with her timeline and that I did not want to be pressured into marriage. I expressed to her that it hurt me when she thought she was better than me and out of my league. I want someone who treats me as an equal. I mentioned that I wanted to end things on good terms, and I wished her the best. Her response was one of anger. She accused me of never loving her and attacked some of my insecurities that I prefer not to share, even anonymously. The conversation got heated, and even though I tried to calm her down and end things amicably, she insisted that I had wasted her time and that I was not a real man, which led to a bitter ending. She then texts me, expressing her desire to end things on better terms, suggesting that she will come over so we can have a productive conversation about our relationship. When I see her in person, she looks more attractive than ever. We decided to have an open exchange of criticisms. I acknowledge her criticism about prioritizing too much work. I also share with her how her comment about being able to find someone better hurt me, emphasizing that such thoughts should not be present in any relationship. She admits her mistake and proceeds to shower me with numerous compliments, saying that I am the best guy she has ever dated. She asks if there is anything I can do to fix things, and I reply that this relationship is beyond repair, but I am glad that we have not left things on a sour note. I make it clear that nothing will change my decision to end it. Surprisingly, she then tries to initiate an intimate encounter, something I had always rejected before, considering it unpleasant. I find it even more pleasurable than our previous experiences. She then suggests that I take until the next day to decide if it is really over and assures me that she will do whatever it takes to make amends. I firmly state that it is over and that I cannot continue in a relationship where I have to threaten to end it in order to receive respect, love, and commitment. She starts crying and tells me that I have always been the one for her with whom she thought she would end up, revealing that some of her friends had shown interest in me over the years, but she kept it a secret because she loved me. In the end, despite her persistent pleas for over an hour, I stand firm, and she eventually accepts the reality and leaves. Later, I receive a screenshot from a friend of an Instagram story she posted to her close friends. I was part of that list earlier this week, but clearly, I'm not anymore. It's a special list in green where you only share content with a select group of followers. The story essentially criticizes me for wasting her time, among other things. I decide to send her one final message before blocking her. I express my hope that everything will go well in her life and that we can go our separate ways. I feel liberated, and I hope to find a woman who will treat me kindly and love me for who I am. So good. Here goes a fourth story. It all started out as a typical Wednesday. I finished my work and headed to my girlfriend's house to spend the evening. After dinner, we have been in a relationship for about a year and a half. When I got to her house, she explained to me that she had plans to meet up with her best friend, and they wanted to go to another girl's house, someone they have only met a few times, to get some drinks. I wasn't too thrilled about the idea of going to this other girl's house and suggested that we spend some time at our best friend's house and then come back home since I had to work in the morning. Plus, I enjoy hanging out with her best friend's boyfriend more while they do their thing. So we went to her best friend's house, where I was supposed to pick her up to go to the other girl's house. However, when we got there, she suggested that we stay at her best friend's house, like I had originally proposed. I thought that was perfect, and we were there for about an hour. I had a beer with her boyfriend because he offered it to me, and I accepted out of politeness. I generally try not to drink or do anything during the week, and if it were up to me, I would be in bed at 11 p.m. Weekends are a different story when I'm not working. Anyway, the girls started drinking vodka shots and were getting pretty drunk. At this point, her friend mentioned she wanted to go somewhere else. I suggested it's getting late, and I wanted to go home soon, so we should stay where we were. She didn't argue, but this idea stuck in my girlfriend's mind, and now she was determined to go somewhere else. She called the girl whose house we were supposed to visit and told her we would go for a while. Initially, I said no, we shouldn't go there, and that I needed to go to sleep. It was almost 11 p.m. However, my girlfriend insisted, so I foolishly decided to compromise. I said, okay, fine, we'll go, but only until 12, and then we're leaving. So we went to this place, and it was just as I expected, a rundown, messy apartment with nowhere to sit and a bunch of random people I'd rather not associate with. It was almost 11:30 at this point, and I thought, well, that's not much time, I'll hold out. The girls were doing their thing, socializing with these other girls, and continuing to drink. They finished a bottle of vodka, and all these girls were really drunk. By the time it hit 12, I went to find my girlfriend and told her it was time to go. However, she pretty much ignored me and continued on with what she was doing, almost like a child who doesn't want to leave the park. I kept reminding her every few minutes, saying, it's time to go, let's go, but to no avail. So, here we are, I'm trying to get these two drunk girls out of this place so I can go home. That's when things start to take a weird turn. I'm not sure exactly how it started, but all of a sudden, my girlfriend, her friend, and these other two girls all went into the room and closed the door. I heard them mention something about a meet between the four of them. I'm standing outside the room in the living room with some other guys, and we're all thinking, what the hell is going on in there? I didn't want to just barge into the room to get my girlfriend out since this isn't my house, and I have no idea what these girls could be doing in there. I texted my girlfriend but got no response. A few minutes went by, and I could hear them talking to each other inside, so I wasn't too worried at that point. At some point, one of the girls came out of the room, and I walked over to the door. I went in, looked for my girlfriend, and expressed my discomfort about what was going on. This startled the other two girls and put an end to this supposed encounter. I told my girlfriend once again, let's go. She agreed and asked me to leave the room so she and her friend could get dressed, and then we'd leave. I waited a few minutes, but they still didn't leave. I walked to the door, opened it, and there she was, under the covers in this not-so-clean bed, getting intimate attention from her best friend. I walked in, saying something like, "That's disgusting. What are you doing?" Of course, they stopped immediately, and at this point, I'm shaking in my shoes. I told her I was leaving, put my shoes on, and was just unsure of what to do. I finally decided, whatever, I'm going to take these drunk idiots home. So, I went back and told them to get their stuff so we could leave this weird place. Her friend apologized to me, and I was speechless. I basically stayed silent and left with her friend before taking my girlfriend home. When we got home, I tried to talk to my girlfriend a little, but it was almost useless since she was very intoxicated at this point. However, she realized that she had done something wrong. Initially, she tried to excuse herself by claiming that I don't give her enough attention and that I don't participate in a particular activity that she enjoys. We discussed it a bit, and I think I managed to get a few points across, and then we went to sleep. The next day, I explained everything to her. Her friend thought it would be okay because they are both girls. She also mentioned that it was her friend who started it, and she just went with the flow, which I found very strange. I explained to her that I was upset and that I felt like she cheated on me, although I'd probably be more upset if it was another guy. Even though it doesn't sit well with me now, she feels really guilty because of it. After work, things are a little awkward between us, and she's acting quite different from her usual self. I'm pretty unsure of how to handle this situation. I understand that it's considered cheating, regardless of whether it's with a guy or a girl. I also realized that if I hadn't walked into that room, I might never have found out about this. I told my girlfriend I understand that she might have thought it was okay because it was another girl, but I feel really uncomfortable with it. I made it clear that if something like that happened again, I would end the relationship. Do you think I'm being too lenient in this situation?